Hi, welcome to Coaster Mania. I'm Micah, and today I want to talk about my rankings of the coasters at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This was the park that really started off my coaster enthusiast journey, so it was awesome for us to be able to go back and capture it for all of you. This is a park that holds the record for the most roller coasters in a single amusement park and features some truly amazing rides among its collection. Six Flags Magic Mountain is one of the main staple parks in the chain and proves it time and time again when it comes to the coasters. It does seem a bit lacking in other aspects, but I'll save that conversation for the full review. Here, we're celebrating the amazing coasters this park is home to. Sure, many of the coasters here may not be the best of the best in their own categories, but most of them here are, at the least, good if not great, and the sum of the whole really makes this park worth visiting. Let's go ahead and rank them all. This coaster was a major disappointment. So forceless. It only has a top speed of 10 miles per hour and it's completely bland. Honestly, good for Six Flags for not allowing us to ride this coaster. Something about guest safety, the trains can't handle the extra weight, the other parents around might feel uncomfortable.
Good day, sir!
The ride-ups here were much cooler. They actually let us ride this one, although it felt like a bit of a mistake. This is your classic E&F Miler family coaster. It's the same standard model you find at most parks, and it doesn't stray from the mold. Expect it to feel janky and kind of uncomfortable. Yet another standardized family coaster, this time a Zamperla. This one is slightly surprising for the level of theming it has. It's not a huge amount, but still a bit more than most coasters at Six Flags parks of all things. It rides just like any other Zamperla family coaster, and is seemingly a more modern version of the E&F Miler family coaster. It still feels just as janky though. Do you ever just have that one thing that the moment you think of it, you don't feel angry, you just feel pure rage? I don't generally like to consider myself a hateful person, even in the slightest, but Scream is something different. Scream Ride Out Loud is a B&M floorless coaster that was opened in 2003. It stands 150 feet tall with a top speed of 63 miles per hour. It is 3,985 feet long and features 7 inversions. This coaster is just about the most bog standard of B&M layouts. So why do I hate it? Well, let me tell you why. This stupid coaster was so rushed by Six Flags that they didn't even bother to get rid of the parking lot beneath it. You can still see the parking lines that were there before its installation. It goes just fast enough through its elements that you don't get any meaningful feeling of hang time, but it also goes through them just slow enough that there isn't any major positive G's either. It's basically forceless, and it's in a layout that should be anything but. I mean, look at Kumba. That coaster features an almost identical layout, and yet it is significantly better. The station building is literally just corrugated steel all around, and this stupid thing stands in the parking lot like some kind of proud coaster to be there. Depending on where you park, you may end up walking right next to it as you enter the park. You could be walking next to a coaster that would be neat to watch, like Superman Ultimate Flight at Great Adventure, or even X2, but no. You get to watch this thing lazily trudge through its layout. Sometimes people will scream when they ride it, sometimes they won't. So this isn't exactly a great ride to sell the excitement of the park. Then there's the name. A roller coaster named after screaming, one that doesn't even make many riders scream or freak out when riding it. This was just about the laziest thing Six Flags could have done, and the fact that they wasted money on this pile of steel is so enraging. I could go on and on and on about how worthless this ride is, but I won't. I want to save you from the constant hatred I feel towards this coaster. If you ever want to ruin my day, just mention Scream. From one dreadful coaster to a mediocre one. Gold Rusher is an aero mine train that was opened with the park in 1971. It features 2,590 feet of track and a max height of 70 feet. It has a top speed of 35 miles per hour and just kind of meanders around the hill. It is a completely inoffensive layout and mostly just exists there. If it were to be closed, I would definitely feel at least a little bit sad to see such a historical coaster go, but wouldn't be all that affected by it. Yeah, this coaster is just inoffensive. Being one of the cloned Vekoma designs, this layout can be found at Disneyland as well, known as Chip 'n Dale's Gadget Coaster. Opened in 2011, this junior coaster features 679 feet of track and a max height of 27.9 feet. It doesn't do anything majorly exciting, but again features more theming than your average Six Flags coaster. There isn't really much I feel as though I can say about it. It gets some decent forces in its final helix, and that's pretty much about it. I was grateful for the fact that you got the chance to go around twice at least. Opened in 1997, this coaster features 2 dueling tracks that each reach a height of 415 feet. The coaster has a top speed of 100 miles per hour and has a layout that just goes straight, up a spike, and back. More recently, the coaster was repainted and rethemed slightly, and the trains were turned around. I have it ranked here simply because the speed it gets to is nuts, and the feeling you get at the top of the spike is unmatched. With the overall duration lasting 30 seconds, this coaster goes a good 15 seconds longer than I can. The experience is pretty similar too. There isn't anything notable to say about the layout. One thing I can't forget to mention is the sound. Here, take a listen. Headphone warning, by the way. Yeah, so this could actually hold the record for the loudest roller coaster in the world. If you are walking around or under the coaster, make sure to actually close off your ears. I am fairly certain that at the volume that it operates, it actually can and will damage your hearing. It genuinely has me curious if the staff members working in the shops below the spike are within OSHA safe limits for loud environments. This would be an incredibly interesting thing to look into further. Ninja is one of those coasters that is hard not to love. These old aero suspended coasters are extremely fun and provide thrills that are still unique to this day. I love the feeling of swooping around the corners and getting close to the ground. It makes me genuinely sad that aero is no longer around, as I'd love to see the modern potential of these coasters. Opened in 1988, this coaster stands at 60 feet tall and features 2,700 feet of track. It has a top speed of 55 miles per hour and spends most of its time winding down the mountain. This coaster at certain points was surrounded by more vegetation, which would have made the experience all the better. Even lacking this, it is still a great experience. In fact, I'd be willing to say it's one of the better aero suspended coasters out there. This coaster is exceptionally smooth and quite forceful. Fortunately, it still has a set-piece dive over the water, and this is a great part of the overall ride experience. Unfortunately, the end of the coaster is a bit of a buzzkill. You experience this great layout, then boom, a lift hill. A slow one at that. I get why this is here, and it's completely out of necessity, but it still doesn't help the fact that it kills the momentum this ride had. New Revolution, or Classic Revolution, or New Revolution - Classic, is a Schwarzkopf looping coaster that was opened in 1976. It features 3,457 feet of track, a max height of 113 feet, and a top speed of 55 miles per hour. This coaster is a true terrain coaster through and through, making great use of its setting and placement in the park. It was one of the first major steel coasters with a vertical loop. This coaster feels classic in its layout and design, and rides incredibly smooth, as do most Schwarzkopf coasters. I am so grateful that it continues to stand the test of time and operates as smoothly as it does. It is such great eye candy for guests walking into the park and is a great introduction to younger riders for looping coasters. There really isn't enough praise that I can give it. The only thing holding it back in this ranking is just how good the rest of the coasters are at this park. Apocalypse is a coaster that does everything you expect from a GCI. It's got a twisting layout that crosses above, below, and next to itself multiple times. It transitions rapidly and makes the most out of the energy its drop gives it. When it comes to comparing it to other coasters by GCI, it doesn't tend to stand out. Among the lineup of coasters at Magic Mountain, it is quite unique. I feel like GCI has a fairly unique design language, especially in today's day and age. Opened in 2009, this coaster is 2,877 feet long, 95 feet tall, and has a top speed of 50 miles per hour. It was originally themed to the Terminator Salvation movie, and to this day still maintains quite a bit more theming than most. Like a few other GCI coasters, it features a station flyby and a curved drop. There generally isn't much else to say about it. It's not a complete standout coaster, and that's okay. It's still decently forceful in the turns, and it's just a genuinely fun ride. This B&M clone is one of many like it. There are many coasters like this one, but this one is Magic Mountain's. As far as setting goes, it isn't the best out there, but as far as pacing and speed go, this is one of the best. Opened in 1994, Batman the Ride stands at 105 feet tall, 2,700 feet long, and has a top speed of 50 miles per hour. These clone layouts do so much with so little. The amount of space they use is tiny, and they pack in 5 inversions in this compact mess. These coasters are just great all around and feature some of the best pacing out there. The low-to-the-ground elements add some extra spice, and the interlocking nature of this coaster provide for a ton of near misses. This Batman clone at Magic Mountain is somewhat unique in that it is probably one of the fastest operating versions of this coaster. This is almost entirely due to heat. Among the rest of the coasters at this park, this is one of the best uses of space there can be. I can see why these clone layouts were so popular. Riddler's Revenge shows that even though it fits the mold of the standard B&M multi-looper layout, it's the height and speed that makes or breaks their layouts. This is by far my favorite B&M stand-up coaster. It's smooth, it's forceful, and it's well-rounded. Opening in 1998, this 4,370 foot long, 156 foot tall coaster features 6 inversions and is a staple of this park. It really goes to show the reactions of the riders after getting off of it, compared to how people were reacting on Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure. After that coaster, people were groaning and complaining about pain. After Riddler's Revenge, people were laughing and excited. This coaster just does it right in so many ways. The placement of the admittedly minimal theming makes it more of a spectacle. The layout and transitions are quick and forceful and really make use of the stand-up feature that this coaster has. I genuinely believe that this coaster will continue to have a long life at this park, and I hope so too. The first of 2 Premier Rides coasters open at Magic Mountain shows off a great deal how good they are with their modern layout design. This coaster was opened in 2013 and is 2,200 feet long, with a max height of 164 feet located at the top of its signature loop. This coaster is launched directly out of the station and sports 2 inversions, although it feels like 3. At the apex of the first loop, the train feels like it slows to a crawl and gives you an incredibly strong dose of hang time. It is truly breathtaking. After this, you sweep up over the path on top of the mountain and enter a dive drop. The coaster briefly stops inside a tunnel under the path, then swing launches backwards and forwards. From here, you get shot up and over the top of the loop, which provides a ridiculously strong pop of ejector airtime. Unfortunately, this hill is cut short by the final brake run, right before you are able to get the fullest dose of that airtime. This coaster is incredibly short, but packs in a huge punch. If the forces experienced on it weren't so strong, it would definitely be further down on the list, but this is just a great coaster all around. This is the most underrated coaster at this park, and it makes me sad how unpopular it is in the eyes of the majority of park visitors. This classic Aero Mega Looper was opened in 1990. It is 3,830 feet long, 188 feet tall, and has a top speed of 70 miles per hour. Viper is janky in all the classic Aero ways, but it is made completely tolerable by the pacing and the speed at which the elements are taken. Each of the loops plant you tightly in your seat, and the drops are each great displays of some mild airtime, especially the first drop. This coaster has some incredibly awkward shaping, especially when put next to the B&Ms located in the same park. That means that even though it's a 7 inversion multi-looper, which isn't unique to the park, it sure feels like it. It definitely helps with the fact that Six Flags has done a great job at taking care of this ride, making sure that it is running as smoothly as possible. This coaster is hated by many coaster enthusiasts, but honestly, I think it's quite fun. The reason is because typically a coaster of this height is designed for all things airtime. Goliath focuses on something different: speed. In some ways, it feels quite similar to the approach that Millennium Force at Cedar Point takes. Goliath opened in 2000 and is 235 feet tall, 4,500 feet long, and has a top speed of 85 miles per hour. It was one of 3 coasters manufactured by Giovanola and is quite unique in the North American coaster market. This coaster does a great job at crushing you into your seat in the helixes. Sometimes you might even gray out on them as well. There really isn't one major aspect of this coaster that is particularly stand out, but it is just good. If Magic Mountain didn't have it, the park would definitely be worse off. Would it be better to have an airtime machine in its place? Sure, but that's not what we have, and I'm tired of complaining about what could be instead of being grateful for what is. Unfortunately for us, this ride was closed when we went. I swear, at every park we visit, there is at least one elusive credit. I'm ranking it here based partially on our experience on the very similar Jersey Devil coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. From what I've heard, this coaster doesn't suffer from the roughness issue that the aforementioned one does. Wonder Woman was opened in 2022 and is an RMC single rail coaster. It is 131 feet tall, 3,300 feet long, and has a top speed of 58 miles per hour. Being the second RMC at Magic Mountain, did it end up better? No. It's still really good and makes great use of the limited plot of land it occupies, but Twisted Colossus does the RMC formula better. This coaster provides more airtime that Magic Mountain is clearly lacking in, but it doesn't do it as strongly as I feel it should. Don't get me wrong, it is still great, but I still personally enjoy Stunt Pilot at Silverwood a tad bit more than this layout, even if it is a bit shorter. This coaster should be considered a one-trick wonder. Tatsu is a B&M flying coaster that takes advantage of its flying seat position to the fullest. Standing at 170 feet tall and with 3,602 feet of track, Tatsu soars over the mountain and does one of the best jobs of giving you the feeling of flight. There really is nothing else quite like it. Most of the ride you're just way up in the air soaring over the park. This is also an incredibly graceful coaster. To me, there just doesn't seem to be a single moment of even slight discomfort. You can just simply focus on flying. The best moment on it has to be the famous pretzel loop. Being the tallest of its kind, this element feels like it's trying to rip your face off. This is another front entrance coaster and again does a great job at showing off what Magic Mountain has on offer. Seriously, there really is nothing else out there quite like it, and it's clear to see why it so often is the highest rated flying coaster on most people's lists. This ranking might surprise some of you out there. Not only is this coaster not the most forceful, fastest, or longest coaster in the park, but it's also not the most iconic. What it does have is fun factor. West Coast Racers is pure fun, and it is a joy to ride it over and over again. When I first rode this, I wasn't all too sure about why people hated the Premier Ride's comfort collar so much. After riding one of the Skyrocket 2 models, I can see why. This coaster doesn't suffer too much from the discomfort with these, but the trains sure are tight. Opened in 2020, West Coast Racers is a Premier Rides dueling Mobius coaster that is 4,000 feet long, 67 feet tall, and has a top speed of 55 miles per hour. Fortunately, this coaster is a guaranteed duel every single time. The interaction between the two trains is exceptional, and it makes the coaster all the better. Probably my favorite elements are the wave turn on the white side. The whip you get going back and forth and the sideways airtime is exhilarating. There really is no better way to describe this ride. It's just pure fun. This is a coaster that isn't a guaranteed duel, but when it does, it amplifies the experience so much more. Twisted Colossus is an RMC hybrid conversion of Colossus, opened in 2015. It features 4,990 feet of track, is 121 feet tall, and has a top speed of 57 miles per hour. Like West Coast Racers, it is also a Mobius coaster, meaning you get to go around twice. This coaster is RMC at its purest form, and there are so many elements in here that are simply great. Twisted Colossus does a great job with its first drops, each of which feel way steeper than they actually are. The layout does a great amount of interaction with itself and keeps itself exciting and forceful the whole way through. This coaster is also home to my favorite pre-lift section on any roller coaster out there. In some ways, it feels kinda janky like kiddie coasters, but is still completely smooth. The one greatest moment on this ride is the Top Gun stall. On the green side, the train goes through a zero-G stall that is set directly above the blue track. This moment felt like it lasted forever the first time I rode it. There really is nothing quite like it, especially when the coaster is dueling. Sure, there may be other zero-G stalls that might last longer, but this one is one of the best out there because of the dueling aspect. Unfortunately, you are more likely to not get a duel, which can make the racing aspect of this coaster non-existent. In the 2023 and 2024 seasons, it sounds like ride crews were being incentivized to get the trains to duel, and they did a great job at this. In my initial visits in 2019, it seems like they genuinely didn't care, but now that they do, it makes nearly all the difference. Surprise! It's the first time an RMC hybrid isn't the top coaster at the park in one of these lists of mine. Honestly, no matter what other coasters this park had, X2 would always be on top. There's nothing like the insanity of it. X2 was opened in 2002 as X and is an Aero 4th Dimension coaster. It stands at 175 feet tall, has 3,610 feet of track, and has a top speed of 76 miles per hour. The coaster has a 215-foot drop, and you plunge down it face first. If you aren't familiar with it, the seats rotate based on a pre-programmed setting. This means that at specific points in the ride, the seats can rotate to face exactly the direction intended by the designers. When riding this coaster for the first time, you'll more than likely come off of it completely confused about what just happened. Even riding a 4D free spin coaster by S&S doesn't compare. It's really unfortunate that this coaster is responsible for destroying Aero as a company. If you have any reason to visit Magic Mountain, consider this one of them. On our last visit, we even got the privilege of experiencing the ride with the flamethrower effects working. When you get to these, the train is facing away from them, meaning you feel this intense heat coming up on you, then all of a sudden you see flames. It's quite an incredible experience, and I'm really grateful we got the chance to experience this once more. As I'd like to mention, the coasters at Six Flags Magic Mountain aren't the best in each of their leagues. What the park does right though is the overall collection. There really is nothing else quite like it, and even if other parks might have better hypercoasters, taller coasters, or ones with more airtime, you can't find anything else like this park. Cedar Point, while it's definitely great, lacks in some ways where Six Flags Magic Mountain excels in its collection. This is a bit of a push and pull dynamic where some parts of Cedar Point are definitely better, but can they compete with 20 coasters? Yeah, I didn't think so. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and comment below and hit that bell icon. Special thanks to our Patreon supporter, Future Collective. $1 a month helps me bring even more content to you guys, and I even have some exclusive content coming, so check it out. Check the description below to find links to the rest of our pages. Thanks for watching the video, and ride on, Coaster Maniacs.